So it is always 1 by 2, 1 by 2, 1 by 2, 1 by 2, and 1 by 2. And there are two tests for it, I2 equal to 0 and V2 equal to 0. So both tests are conducted on this secondary side or output side. So this is the transmission parameter. In transmission parameter we call A as open circuit voltage ratio, not gain. Why? Because it is the ratio of 1 to 2. If it was 2 to 1, then we would call it a gain. It can be called reverse gain for some reason, but you should be calling it the ratio. The B is termed as the short circuit transfer impedance. Short circuit because V2 is 0, so that's why we call it short circuit. And it is V by I, so V by I is R or Z, so it is impedance. C is I by V. V by I is impedance, so I by V is admittance. And it is also transfer admittance. Why? Because the numerator is 1 and the denominator is 2. So 1 by 2 is forward transfer. D is the negative short circuit current ratio. It is negative because there is a sign negative with it. When we calculate it, we get a sign of negative, minus. And it is current ratio because it is one current by second current, I1 divided by I2. Now let's solve some circuits for finding these ABCD parameter. So we have written it here that A is V by V, B, D is I by I. So A and D are somewhat ratios of voltage and currents. B is V by I impedance, C is I by V admittance, and all are 1 by 2, 1 by 2, 1 by 2. So for the first A and C, for A and C, we make I2 equal to 0. So this is our A and C. So I2 should be 0 for calculating these things. So if we make I2 0, there will be no voltage drop across this. And if we are finding V1, so we can find it from the relation with V2. V2 is appearing here. So this is a circuit like such. Here is our V2, here is our V1. So V2 is equal to V1 multiplied by 1 microfarad is 1 over j omega C, and C is 1. So 1 over j omega divided by 1 plus 1 over j omega. So if we solve it, it turns out to be 1 over j omega divided by 1 j omega plus 1 divided by j omega, total j omega. So this j omega cancel with this, and we are left with 1 divided by 1 plus j omega 1 over, and hence this voltages are V2 is equal to V1 into 1 over j omega divided by j omega plus j omega. So I guess it is 1 over j omega. No, sorry, it is not 1 over j omega, it is j omega, because we have calculated the V2 in terms of V1. So if we say that this is 1 by 2, so this 1 over j omega which we have calculated here will go to this other side and become j omega plus 1. So just check it and find the A parameter using this method, that it is a series circuit in which V1 is across the terminals and V2 is across the j omega capacitance. Okay, we can also find C by the same combination of circuit. So C is I1 by V2. So I1 by V2 says that V is equal to IR, and V2, if we check in this circuit, let me write it with some other color now. If we check this circuit, here we have V2 in it, okay, and current that is flowing through this circuit is I1, because the same current is flowing in this circuit. And the resistance of this circuit, the impedance of this circuit is 1 over j omega C. C is 1, so 1 over j omega. So we can write V2 as V2 is equal to 1 over j omega into I1. So डायरेक्टली ये सॉल्व हो गया. Now 1/2 अगर हम ये करें तो ये यहाँ पे चला जाएगा and it will become j omega. So I1 by V2 is j omega. I1 by V2 is j omega. So using same side open, we calculated these things. Now coming towards this second part in which we make V2 equal to 0. पहले I2 equal to 0 किया था, V2 equal to 0 करेंगे. So V2 जब हम 0 कर लेंगे, then this circuit becomes parallel and this circuit becomes in series with that. Now find क्या करना है? First we have to find the V1 relation with I2. अगर हम इस इक्वेशन में देखें तो V2 हमने 0 किया हुआ है, हम ये रिलेशन फाइंड करना चाहते हैं. So V is equal to IR. You just have to find the combined resistance from V1 side. So V1's combined resistance is 1 plus 1 parallel 1 over j omega multiply by I1. That gives us V1. So we can calculate a V1 like this, but here is a problem. The problem is that this thing is 1 and here we want 2, not 1. So what we will do? We will write the value of this I1 in terms of I2. So this is our current I1 and this is our current I2, and this current is going in this direction and this direction with negative sign, and we want to find this I1. So I1 would be equal to the part in which this I2 is not going, 1 over j omega, divided by the total paths, so 1 plus 1 over j omega whole into minus 1. Why? Because both currents are in opposite direction to I2. So we said that this thing, using the same condition previously we got 1 plus j omega, so this will give us 1 plus j omega and I1, so we and I2, sorry, and we multiply a minus sign with it because this I2 is opposite to that. So we have replaced I1 by I2. So this turns out to be our B. So B is 2 plus j omega. Now we are left with I1 and dI2. So I1 and dI2 is again the current dividend rule. We want to find I1 in terms of I2. So or I2 in term of I1, because I1 is our main current. It is going towards the circuit, and I2 is short circuited using the V2 equal to 0 equation. So what we do, we check that in which branch I2 is flowing. I2 is flowing in 1 ohm, in this 1 ohm. So we take this thing and put it in numerator 1 over j omega divided by this plus this 1 plus j omega, and multiply it by the I1 to get our I2, and put a minus sign because are in opposite direction. Solve this thing for I1 by I2, and we will get 1 plus j omega. So this is our B. So this is the procedure for calculating A, B, C, D. You just have to make this circuit open, calculate A and C, and then short, and calculate B and D using the method that we discussed here. Here we have a pi circuit, and we want to calculate the ABCD parameters for such circuit, the transmission parameters. So what will we do? We will make I2 equal to 0, and then we will make V2 equal to 0. So if you check these equations, if we make I1 equal to 0, if let's say this I1 is 0, what will that mean? That our V2 would be equal to 1 over A times V1, or V2 would be 1 over A times V1, or if we calculate this V2 in terms of V1, so we are having V1 here, and this is our V2 side. So V2 is equal to V1 multiplied by the resistance in which we want to find the current, voltage divided by the total resistance of the path. So that is 21 plus 10.5. So this is our 1 over A. So our A is 31.5 divided by 10.5, which is around 3. So this is 3. So this is how we find V2, and then we calculate the A. Okay, so now the same test can result us in calculating C. How will we calculate C? So for that, we remove this thing that we have already written in here. So here we are saying that V2 is across this 10.5 ohm resistance. So V2 is equal to I of this branch, this particular branch IB, into 10.5 ohm, and this IB is actually coming from this point. This is a part of I1. So this IB can be calculated from this current I3, which is I3 is the current branch in which it is not flowing divided by flowing plus not flowing, which is 42 divided by 36, okay, into I1. Now this same IB can be replaced by this thing. So if we replace it by this thing, we will have 10.5 multiplied by 42 divided by 63. That turns out to be 1 बाय इससे क्या आ जाएगा हमारे पास सिर्फ 7 आ जाएगा और फिर इसको इन्वर्ट करें तो 1 बाई 7 आएगा. तो जस्ट चेक दिस थिंग एंड चेक इफ इट वर्क्स फॉर यू और नॉट. Okay, after that we make V2 equal to 0. So if we make this V2 equal to 0, से क्या हो जाएगा कि हमारा जो आउटपुट के साथ जो रेजिस्टेंस कनेक्ट है वो शॉर्ट हो जाए. So this thing will become 0 or does not exist. Okay, so by doing that, by making this V2 0, we can find B and D. So first equation is V1 is equal to minus B I2. So अगर हम इस इक्वेशन को लेके V1 by I2 V1 by I2, the voltage from the first side and in which the current is flowing from the second side. So we can write this equation in the form of I1 and later on replace I1 by I2. So if we write in term of I1, we can say that V1 is equal to total impedance seen from this side multiplied by I1. So total impedance multiplied by I1. Total impedance is 42 parallel 21. So V1 is equal to I1 multiplied by 42 parallel to 21. Now replace this I1 in terms of I2. So I2 is the part of current that is flowing in this branch of this circle. So we can say that I2 minus I2 is current in which I1 is not flowing divided by current branch in which I1 is flowing plus not flowing. So 21 plus 42, which turns out to be 2 by 3. So here this thing is 2 by 3 I1. So V1 is 42 parallel 21 into 2 by 3 of I1, 3 by 2 of I1, because we are saying that we are putting I2's value in it in this equation, but here we are putting I1's value in it. So invert हो जाएगा. So this will give us our B. पहले हम B calculate करते हैं तो B calculate होगा. Now there is this fourth branch, fourth variable D. So D क्या है? It is I1 by I2. So ये जो काम हम यहाँ पे कर रहे थे, this is the exact calculation of D. हम I1 के रेशियो I3 के साथ मल्टीप्लाई कर रहे हैं, कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं. So I2 के साथ. So this is 3 by 2, which is this thing. इससे हमारे पास ये चीज़ आ जाएगी D. So just try it and let me know in case of any problem. And that's it for our today's lecture. Thank you. Thanks a lot.